I want you to think back to when you were in school. Probably you had to do a bunch of drills, like, oh no, evacuating a building in case of a fire, shielding your head in case of an earthquake, or crouching down in a hallway because of a tornado. But one that probably stands out to you is the lockdown drill, mainly because the person causing the problem can think. Sure, a fire can be triggered by an arsonist, but as anyone who has been near a burn pit can attest, fire isn't exactly fast at maximizing effective kill count, nor is it exactly something that can think. And kill count is exactly what most shooters want to maximize. So, when a school shooting became a Daily Wire distributed movie, I needed to make a double take. First off, the name. It's pretty clearly named after the active shooter response paradigm that many schools have adopted now, mostly because this film wants to farm clicks by any means necessary. I'm going to be real here. There's no way you can portray a lockdown accurately in a film. In general, these things are done pretty quickly, mostly in like 10 to 15 minutes, unless you're the Uvalde Police Department. It's also a pretty strict formula. School day goes as normal, student gets locked down when the signal police begin clearing the campus room by room until they neutralize the shooter and found all people. It's a dramatic 10 to 15 minutes. Trust me, every minute will feel like an hour. So what does the Run, Hide, Fight film have to do with this concept? Well, it turns it into Die Hard. They tried turning a school shooting into Die Hard. But whereas Die Hard is over-the-top insanity, because this is a real danger that many people face on a daily basis, and there are systems in place to deal with it, it's hard to see where this film goes. You could have it go over the top and not be taken seriously, or you can have it super realistic, and then there's falling into the middle, which is thus the uncanny valley. I might as well get started with this film. We open with a hunting scene. In order to appear edgy and mature, this probably used an actual deer for this shot. Where's the mom in this scene? Because we have Zoe, we have her dad. Well, a ghost. She's dead. This causes a lot of angst, although I'm going to be glossing over most of her scenes. On her way to school, Zoe spots Chris doing something weird. He's placing a bomb. This is a clear reference to Columbine, who the shooters tried to place bombs elsewhere in order to distract emergency services to not have them interfere with their whole evil plan. Then we get a montage of classes, usual high school stuff, chemistry class. Cinematography in this movie is bad even by indie film standards because the shots aren't dynamic at all. Bomb goes off in the field. Time for the school shooting to begin. A white van rams the cafeteria during lunch. This must be the loudest hand dryer ever, since Zoe clearly didn't hear a van ramming the wall of the school and crashing into the cafeteria and all the students screaming from the bathroom. Students are getting gunned down, more shooters arrive. We meet our main antagonist, who I'm going to call the Joker, because he's clearly trying to emulate Heath Ledger's The Joker. After knifing an injured coach to death, Zoe is tipped off to the shooting by a character stumbling in dead in the girl's bathroom, and then peeks out. As one of the goons sweeps the bathrooms in order to find survivors or anyone who's escaped, Zoe manages to escape through the ceiling. The villains are doing this whole thing to revel in social media clout, and they start playing sadistic games. So after reporting this to the cafeteria, the communications get cut, and lockdown clearly isn't going to be happening anytime soon. The Joker goes on a monologue about the weaknesses of the lockdown procedure, including how lockdowns are public knowledge. Not sure why you're going about by this. We've had 20 years of students undergoing lockdown drills. Hell, you as the shooter. This was a film released in 2020 and takes place ambiguously in the 2010s. Probably grew up with lockdown drills. The staffers who grew up building barricades got to use that skill set and put it on their resumes after January 6th. This is the weirdest return on investment ever. So Zoe makes it out and tells the others to go run. Of course, all attempts at confronting the shooters in the cafeteria are met with failure, and Zoe breaks into the school and orders everyone out. Realizing this is slow as hell going room by room, she pulls the fire alarm to get people out. only for the plan to end up going kaput because one of the shooters ends up smashing the alarm system. And then that shooter also cuts the power to the entire school. And the police response through the front office ends up blowing up in their faces, quite literally. It's pretty bad, and Zoe was actually near the front office at the time and ends up playing dead in order to not die from a shooter's bullet. So the shooters begin clearing rooms, room by room, in order to get them all to the cafeteria, even playing sadistic games with the Spanish teacher. Meanwhile, Zoe kills one of the shooters in the teacher's lounge. Basically, there was a senior prank where the teacher's lounge was filled with balloons, and in the struggle, Zoe shoots the shooter. Now we get our dose of the police being absolutely useless. Using a fire extinguisher, Zoe subdues another shooter and insists on taking him hostage, where he goes through this whole sob story about wanting to do this for friends. I really don't care. I find this motivation stupid, and if he doesn't do what he did in the later part of this movie, I would have said, Zoe, just smash his head in. Zoe adopts the gun of one of the shooters and leads the classes elsewhere, because the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. No, seriously, that's the theme of this movie. Basically, the media has been filming and making a big scene, which is giving the shooters exactly what they want, and it's basically interfering with police action, so the police are trying to get them off. And the sheriff is even talking to the shooter on speaker in order to distract the media. Of course, the shooters notice this distraction plan. Zoe has been rescuing classroom by classroom. Okay, come on. What is wrong with this scene? Everything is wrong with this specific scene. So, in order to flush out Zoe, they manage to threaten her. Basically, come down to the cafeteria, unarmed, or we'll just kill everyone in the cafeteria. And what follows next is that the shooter she captured has a change of heart and ends up getting into a firefight with the other shooters, while that shooter who had a change of heart ends up dying on the floor of the cafeteria. Zoe manages to score a major victory, seizing the live stream of this entire operation. Basically, the shooters are live streaming their entire escapade on the school's social media, and everyone is on it. And now that the phone is gone, and with Zoe, well, there goes the social media clout. One of the shooters is sent to kill Zoe and retrieve the phone, but we get a butt-ugly fight scene in probably one of the best places to have a fight scene in a school shooting movie. I can't believe I just said that, but a science lab fight is probably the best place to have an innovative fight scene. But no, this movie says you can't kill them with your wits in a science lab. You need to have a sniper shot from Dad kill that shooter for you. So basically, the Joker is sort of short on staff, so he tries to just simply blow up the school and leave. And Zoe gets arrested because, of course, the cops aren't going to be following live streams of this. They don't know who she is, though she's let go by the sheriff. Not sure why they just didn't give her medical treatment, especially since I think that's either a fire truck or an ambulance in the background. Seriously, she's been injured. Why is she not getting medical treatment? Zoe then exits the car and sees the shooter. He has taken someone else's clothes and is about to skip town. And then she snipes him. The end. This is a terrible movie. Let's put aside the subject matter for just 1 second. When you are making an action movie, please make the action better than watching wine ferment. The action is dull in this movie. The fight choreography, even for the more interesting scenes, is dull. It fundamentally must end with someone being shot rather than killed in a more innovative way. And the lighting. I get it's a movie trying to depict a realistic blacked-out school, but come on, you can sacrifice realism for good cinematography. At least light the area better. Your hero is depicted as someone in shadow. This is a convention usually used for an antagonist. If I gave you this shot out of context, you would think that this is a school shooter going to shoot up a gym class, not a hero trying to rescue a gym class. The intention of the movie is to make Zoe come off as this badass hero, but with how she's framed and how this movie plays out, and especially her final speech to the Joker, she comes off as sociopathic and unhinged. Now, this is the part where I nitpick for its lack of realism. This is where I need to fudge details myself, since different schools have different procedures and policies, especially with the advances in technology since 2020. Let's begin. Van ramming is not a thing for most school shootings, probably the most obvious on this list. Most school shootings don't have this level of coordination from multiple shooters. Usually it's one, maybe two entering a school and then opening fire in areas that have large populations, such as assemblies or in lecture halls. Wait, that's for university shootings. In classrooms, or in the case of one of them, I forget which one, the fire alarms went off and just shot down the hallway. Probably Parkland was the one I'm thinking about. Also, this building must be made out of nothingness itself, because there ain't no way you couldn't hear a van ramming through the wall of the cafeteria from the bathroom located in the cafeteria, let alone anywhere else in the school. I mean, didn't adjacent classrooms not hear this and warn the office of a loud crashing noise, or at least want to go investigate the loud crashing noise outside their rooms? Hell, depending on what school you're in, any staff can trigger a lockdown, either through a classroom phone connected to the PA system or through a badge. Zoe using the fire extinguisher to knock out a shooter is actually accurate. We're taught to use it, mainly because whatever the fire extinguisher blasts, it one, suppresses oxygen, and two, tastes really bad. Not to mention, it's also a metal cylinder, so getting bonked in the head with this is probably fatal. Though, for the sake of artistic license in a movie, getting hit in the head with this only knocks the guy out temporarily. In terms of procedure, I want to question the sense of the gym coach right here, because why the hell are the gym students just huddled on the floor? Proper protocol states you want to move them to a mildly defensible or escapable position, like a locker room, which normally have emergency exits. I think for one school I subbed in, the protocol states that we needed to barricade in the weight room. Yeah, you don't need a degree in particle physics to know that a weight room is pretty easy to barricade. Then let's talk about the run, hide, fight paradigm, the namesake of this movie. For a film that actively names itself after a training program for workplace shootings, it seems very active to ignore the actual advice of it, probably because it wants to farm clicks. For example, when the shooters invade the Spanish classroom, based on how run, hide, fight is supposed to go, the students and the teachers would have had to actively prevent that entry in the first place. I get the first reaction is to freeze and be scared when you hear gunshots, but come on. This lamp couldn't have been used as a bludgeon. This couch couldn't have been used to barricade the door. Couches! Likewise, the vase couldn't have been used as a projectile right here when he actually entered. You knew this was a school shooting because of how weird everything is, and the fact that it's being live streamed, and come on, this was 2020. Kids were on their phones throughout the 2010s. Come on, no one would have noticed that there was a massive shooting being live streamed, especially since we know this was trending on the internet? All these desks couldn't have been used to barricade the door or be used as a battering ram against the shooters. The cabinet in the background couldn't have been used. No one bothered to break the windows. Okay, for on the second story, I think that might not be a good idea, but I guess the glass shards could have been of some use. Really, movie? I mean, are there no scissors in this school? In a classroom? The environment is rarely used to the student's advantage except when Zoe is around, such as using the senior prank balloons in the teacher's lounge to fight one of the shooters, or the fight with the chemistry class and lighting the natural gas lines on fire. And again, that last one had her dad bail her out by sniping the shooter, while the one right before that had her kill the shooter with the shooter's own gun. I question why this film wasn't about ordinary students fighting against the school shooters. During the fight in the chemistry classroom, have a dainty nerd and a quarterback duck into there for cover, unable to actually lock the door since the teacher is shot and the boys are unable to find a working key. They are forced to barricade and then fight. The nerd sets off a fire, allowing the quarterback to tackle and disarm the shooter, even though the shooter was carrying a second gun and that cost the quarterback his life. But then the dainty nerd kills that shooter. I mean, you could have done so much more with this movie. During the Spanish classroom scene, have everyone be scared, but it takes one person who charges the shooter and manages to draw blood. Though it doesn't kill that shooter, it does prove the shooter isn't invincible and has an opening for other students who are equally as brave. You can still have Zoe kill not Heath Ledger's Joker because at that point you're 100% done seeing innocent blood get shed. Which brings me to my next point. The Joker gang is the focus for most of the movie. You care very little for the people they shoot, and the narrative realizes this, so they try to give them the evil motive of social media clout. But honestly, it doesn't work. It's hard to make a school shooting movie that doesn't glorify the shooter, because we like villains in our movies, but since this is so close to real life, it's hard to not give them a sense of dignity or validation by putting them in the seat of main character, specifically main antagonist. For reference, one of the villains gets character development and refuses to die a monster, turning on the other shooters. Can you say that for any of the victims at all? No, you can't, because this movie doesn't want to prioritize that. This movie cares more for Zoe as an action protagonist having to deal with a bunch of school shooters, which, honestly, if it wasn't for the actress playing her actually being unnerving when she's in murder mode, I am honestly going to say they failed because Zoe is really generic. So, this movie can't do action, it can't make compelling drama, and it can't even be lit properly. Need I say more? This is a bad movie. Those are just my thoughts. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.